just keep paddling. And it's the same way with the business. Sometimes I get really overwhelmed. I feel like I'm battling these strong currents and winds in my business and have hit rocks, and I just have to keep going.
Today's guest is Tori Ayers. In 2016, Tori decided to follow her heart and drive cross-country to relocate to the Pacific Northwest. Always passionate about paddling, she eventually started her own business and for the past 5 years has successfully been the proud owner and operator of Dragonfly Kayak Tours, which offers guided sea kayaking tours and outdoor adventures for both kids and adults. As you'll hear in this episode, Tori is a great example of what can happen when you take a leap of faith and believe in your dreams, even when you don't have it all figured out. So let's get into it. I'm your host, Liz Landeen, and this is The Outdoor Entrepreneur. Hi, Tori. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Liz. Thank you.
Well, I'm super excited you're here. So take us back to 2016. You're living in Tennessee, and you've made the decision that you no longer want to be in Tennessee, apparently. What was going on in your life, or maybe not going on, that was the catalyst for this big cross-country move?
That's a big question. I had just gotten divorced about a year before that. And my daughter was grown and had already moved out on her own. And I had done some traveling. I went to Europe for a few months, came back and was staying with a friend. And my friend kindly asked me what I wanted to do with my life. And I wasn't really quite sure, but I knew I didn't want to keep working a normal job. So I had decided, I had already been traveling. I didn't have a job. I didn't have an apartment. So I was like, okay, I'll take a road trip and I'll figure it out. And when I told my friend this, she, in her very Southern way, said, honey, you're going to get out there and not want to come back. Because my goal was to drive west and just kind of see the country and see where I wanted to land. And I was like, you're right. I'm not going to want to come back. So I just got rid of anything that wouldn't fit in my Toyota Yaris and put my kayak on top of my car and just started driving west.
Wow, that's amazing. And kudos to your friend. I love how supportive she was and asked you some really great questions, or maybe helped guide you towards packing it all up and just going on a drive.
Really good friends will always tell you the honest truth, whether you want to hear it or not.
So true. So true. Okay. So your car is packed up. You fit everything in there that you need to. You're driving cross country. I know you ultimately ended up in Bellingham, Washington. How did you end up there? Why did you pick Washington? How did that happen?
Well, again, I was still trying to figure out where to land. And I actually had a friend riding along with me part of the way who was encouraging me along the way. We would stop in certain places and he would say, oh, this would be a great place for you to stay. There's a river here and you could do a lot of kayaking. And ultimately, I just kept being pulled further west. I just wanted to keep going. And years before I landed in Bellingham, a different friend had told me about this town of Bellingham and that she had heard how cool it was. She had never been here herself, but she had heard it was a really cool town. They had like this great little community grocery store where you could buy things in bulk and it was on the sea, and it just sounded really lovely. And Google Maps is what really drew me here. I pulled up a map of Bellingham. I started clicking on the images around Bellingham, and I was like, wow, that place is beautiful. That's where I want to be. And at this point, I had been to Europe. I had been to all of these amazing places, and I thought that's where I wanted to end up. And when I started researching Bellingham, I just thought it looked like the most beautiful place, at least in the United States, that I could find myself. So here I am.
Wow, it sounds incredible. I feel like now I have to add this to my list. We're actually planning hopefully within the next year or so, a big Pacific Northwest road trip. So it'll have to be added to the list.
Come to Bellingham. I'll take you kayaking.
Oh, perfect. All right. Well, I love that story. I really connect with it because, I grew up on the East Coast. I'm from Connecticut. and was very much after a quick trip out west for a family trip in high school, pulled to the Southwest. And I just knew I had to get back out there. I didn't know exactly, how it was all going to unfold, but I knew I needed to be out west. And I kind of did a similar thing where I was looking at colleges, but I pulled up a map. I just said, I'm going to pull up a map and look around, and eventually found myself in Colorado. But I love those stories where things just they just unfold. You didn't have it all figured out, but it sounds like it worked out exactly how it needed to be.
Yeah, I knew when I was driving into Bellingham, there's this corridor where you drive in. It's really beautiful, evergreen trees, beautiful lake along the way. And I just could feel this energy here that I knew I wanted to be in this place.
How and when did you decide to start your own business? So I'm curious, when you got to Bellingham, did you pretty much just jump into, okay, I need to start a business and I know what I want to do? Or did you work some other jobs first? Like, what did your journey into entrepreneurship look like for you?
I have known for a very long time that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I knew I wanted to own my own business. I didn't know what it was going to look like. And I've tried so many things in my life. I've done all the things, Mary Kay, Party Light, Melaleuca. I've tried all these different multi-level marketing type things to try to own my own business. And I was never really passionate about those things. And one thing my ex-husband said to me that it was very hurtful at the time, but it's really pushed me to keep dreaming. He said to me, "You're a dreamer, not a doer." And I was just so angry when he said that. But then I realized I can be both a dreamer and a doer. And that's when I started dreaming more and dreaming bigger and dreaming about what I wanted to do, really, what I was passionate about. And I had done, like I said, I had done the trip to Europe. There were some kayaking businesses that I had kind of researched. I never got to go out with them, but I was like, that sounds really cool. You can actually go out and go on a guided kayak trip in Portugal. That would be amazing. And then previous to that, I had gone kayaking in the Boundary Waters up in Minnesota. And I thought, wow, this would be a really cool place to take people, to guide people. And so I kind of tossed that idea around. Could I maybe move to Minnesota and do some outfitting up there? And then I kept thinking, man, it gets really cold in Minnesota. I don't think I want to live there. And this idea of doing something with kayaking just kept kind of rolling around in my head for a couple of years. When I was driving to Bellingham, I was formulating my ideas and my dreams and my thoughts a little bit more. And basically, I got here in September 2016. And by October 2017 is when I officially started Dragonfly Kayak Tours.
Got it. Okay. And road trips are the best for that, I think, for just trying to work things out in your head. They always help, I think, bring some clarity. So I'm not a paddler, but I'm curious to learn more about it. What about paddling do you love, or what were you drawn to, or how did you get started?
The very first time I kayaked was I was visiting my uncle who lived in New Hampshire at the time. And he took me kayaking on one of the many beautiful lakes. I don't remember which was the first one I went kayaking on. And I just thought, wow, this is a beautiful way to be on the water. It just felt really calm and peaceful. And I was 15 at the time and felt like there was nothing calm and peaceful in my life, as probably a lot of 15-year-olds feel. And I just really liked the idea of being able to be out on the water, to be alone, and to enjoy the beauty around me. He gave me my first kayak. I think I was about 25. I went up to visit and we rented some sort of SUV. We didn't have a very good vehicle at the time. So we rented an SUV. We drove up there. It was like March or April. Got this beautiful sea kayak, this touring kayak. Loaded it on the car to come back. There was a nor'easter that blew through when we were up there, and we were driving back with this kayak on the car, and snow just pounding, just falling. It was quite a beautiful sight. But I was super happy to have this kayak in my life now, and I went out as much as possible. But I realized in Tennessee that a touring kayak just wasn't what I needed, so I sold that kayak and I bought a smaller recreational kayak. And that was one that I could lift on my own. I could put on my car by myself. And when I got that kayak, I just went out as much as I possibly could to rivers and lakes, and the love for the sport just grew.
I love that. I love hearing stories about somebody who's been just instrumental in your life and maybe even like changing the trajectory of it in some ways, that really kind of introduced you to paddling and having this uncle that took you out and then bought you a kayak. I think those are such inspiring stories.
Yeah, it's interesting. Without that introduction into kayaking, I don't know if I ever would have done it. So yeah, that was such a huge pivot in my life at that age. I was angry a lot. I kind of grew up in a bit of a volatile household, and that was a place where I could just go and it was just peaceful.
I wonder if it has something to do with being on the water. There's something so peaceful about water and being surrounded by water. And, I'm sure there's studies that have been done around this, but I wonder if that's part of it that you connected with.
I'm sure it's so calming for me. And even now when I just need to breathe a little bit, even if I can't get out on my kayak, I live within 5 minutes of the shore, and I will just walk and just go sit and listen to the water and take in the energy of the sea. And I think there's something very healing about it.
We'll be right back after this quick break. If you're like most people, you have tons of thoughts, ideas, and shiny things swirling around that beautiful, powerful entrepreneurial brain of yours. If you're looking for someone to share all that with, I got you. Grab a free 30-minute clarity call and let's have a quick brainstorming session. At the end of the call, you'll leave with recommendations on next steps you can take to move forward with clarity, confidence, and ease, as well as access to helpful tips, tools, and resources. Go to lizlandeen.com, scroll down the page, and click the button to schedule your free clarity consult today. And don't worry, it's pitch-free and no pressure. Look forward to chatting with you soon. All right, now let's get back into the episode. So tell us more about your business then. Tell us more about Dragonfly Kayak Tours and what you do, what you offer, kind of what your business is.
So I started very small. It was interesting. I had run into my competitor, but she had sold the business to someone else. But I had run into her husband at Trader Joe's, and we started chatting one day. And he said, "Oh, my wife used to own competitor's business, right? And she'd probably love to talk to you." And so I did. I talked to her a little bit, and she said, "The one piece of advice I can give you is start small. Don't go crazy with it." And that's exactly what I did. I started with 2 tandem kayaks and a couple of singles, and I started taking people out on guided kayak tours. So the first year, it was pretty small, and I didn't get out that much, but it's grown over the years, over just the few years that I've done it. And I take people on guided sea kayak tours. I do day tours. I do sunset tours, and I do the ever popular bioluminescence tours that people just can't get enough of. I also do multi-day tours. So I'll do like overnight camping. We'll kayak to some, beautiful island or spot that you can only get to by boat and camp for a few days.
And are you doing this? I know you're owner operator. Are you doing this all on your own? Do you have other staff that work with you?
So this was the first year. This was a big year for me. Aside from doing the kayak tours, I started a kids camp this year. So I do a summer camp for kids ages 7 to 12. And so I knew if I was going to be doing all of that, I would need some help. So this is the year that I hired employees, and I'm not doing it all alone. I still definitely need to expand and hire more people next year because it's growing so much, and I'm going to need help. It's a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think everybody's just craving the outdoors right now. They can't get enough of it, which is wonderful. I think it's such a wonderful thing. And I really appreciate, just going back for a quick minute on what you were just saying, the advice you were given to start small, because I run into this a lot with clients I work with. And I even can fall into this too with just ideas and how overwhelming it can be and how much we start thinking these huge thoughts, right? The 5-year plan, the 10-year plan. And sometimes I think it causes us into the whole analysis paralysis where we end up kind of not doing anything sometimes because it just feels too big and too overwhelming versus what you did, which was just start, first of all, and then start small. So just make sure it's manageable, make sure you can do it well, have it under control, and then you can scale from there. But I think a lot of people feel like, oh, I have to have everything figured out right from the beginning versus just getting started.
Yeah. If there's one thing I'm able to do, it's dream big. And I realize sometimes my dreams get a little bit too big for the moment and I have to scale back. I had some ideas for the coming year and I decided, you know what, it's too soon. I need to focus on what I'm doing now and really dial that in before I grow a little bit more.
So do you think there's any correlation between paddling and being an entrepreneur? So I'm wondering if are there any life lessons maybe you've learned through paddling that you've been able to apply to being an entrepreneur?
Definitely. When you're paddling, when you're out there, you're in the elements. It doesn't matter how many forecasts I look at, things change. They change all the time, especially out here on the sea. It can, being on the river, being on the lake, things do change, but not like here, not like when you're dealing with the sea, when you're dealing with the changing tides and the wind and the currents and they can make you just want to stop. Like they're exhausting. The thing that you have to do though, is you have to keep paddling. And sometimes I'll be out there, I'll have a headwind, I'll have a current. I'll be so tired and so frustrating. And I start in my head, just singing the little song that Tori sang in Finding Nemo. But instead of swimming, I say paddling. So I just keep paddling, just keep paddling. And it's the same way with the business. Sometimes I get really overwhelmed. I feel like I'm just battling these strong currents and winds in my business and have, hit rocks and all these things. And I just have to keep going. Otherwise, I'm not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, it's a great just analogy to, to paddling and being an entrepreneur. I think there are so many similarities. So you're going on 4 years now of having a business that you built with your very own hands and that you, it sounds like, love doing. What do you think the keys to your success have been in building your business?
Well, I think starting small was big, not biting off more than I can chew, usually, and not relying solely on myself. I have currently a really amazing partner who's super supportive. I have a lot of women in my life who are entrepreneurs that I can talk to and, kind of get that little pep talk that I need to keep going sometimes. Having a really strong support system is key. I don't think I could do it if I didn't have a strong support system. Yeah, staying consistent, setting goals, setting small goals, and just, kind of making lists, all those little things that maybe sound small, but they really help. I'm not the most organized person. I'm an outdoors person. I'm a paddler. I'm not I'm not probably what anybody would consider like your normal kind of entrepreneur. I'm kind of all over the place. I'm a creative. And so the business side of it is really hard for me. And so I have to do those things. I have to be consistent, make those lists and just follow through on things.
Yeah. And I hear this all the time too, from a number of people, especially the more creative types, right? Where it's like, oh, I want to be doing my thing. I want to be doing the things I love and not so focused on the business side of things. And I hear it all the time where people say, oh, I'm not a business person, but you're running your own business. So you probably are a business person, on some level. And I think you're right. There's things people can do to really help dial that in, and things like just being clear on what your goals are and making lists and kind of getting some kind of, organizational system around building your business is really, really helpful. And that means if you can get that dialed in, then you have more time to be out there and really doing the things you enjoy doing.
Yeah, 100%.
And then, the support side of things too, I think is really just so important. And so I would encourage anybody who maybe feels like they don't have a support system to find one. Really, I mean, it might not come from your traditional means of what we think of as a support system. It might not be your friends and family, but there's lots of online communities. There are lots of people out there maybe doing what you're doing that you can connect with, and you can find people, I think, and really start building your own support system and your own support network.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that oftentimes it's not your friends and family, especially when you're doing something so radically different. Your friends and family mean well, but they can also be the biggest critics and the hardest to please. And so finding people that are just going to be supportive and be honest with you, but also tell you what the things that you need to hear too. Tell you, hey, you're doing great. I mean, I know it's really hard right now, and I know you don't know what's going to happen next, but you're doing really well. And you need to hear those things. You need to hear, like, hearing people be negative is definitely not helpful. And that's one thing that I really try to avoid in my life, are people that are negative.
Yes, no room for negative
No,
Nellies, that's for sure.
Definitely
I'm
not.
there with you.
Definitely not. Yeah.
We don't have time for that. So you run your own business, plus, you're in the field, you're paddling, you're taking people out on tours, and I'm sure doing many, many other things. Can you walk us through just what does an average day look like for you?
Oh gosh, I don't know if there is an average day, but if it's
an ideal day. How about an ideal day?
An ideal day, if it's a kayaking day, I would, get up. I would have my boats ready to go because I would have prepped them the night before, and just get out there, meet the people, connect with people, get them out on the water. There are days when I've spent from 10 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night on the water. And those days are exhausting, but they're also really rewarding because of the people you get to meet, the joy that I bring to people, getting them out there, doing something that they've never done before. Oftentimes, people that have never sea kayak before are the ones who are joining me on these tours. And, introducing them to this sport that I love, and to see them finding joy in it. That's the kind of thing that I like to do. That's an ideal day for me, is to bring people joy and bringing them out on these kayak tours. And this past season that I'm just wrapping up, my days have been spent bringing kids out and teaching them how to kayak and letting them find the joy in it. And not just kayaking, but hiking and exploring the sea and getting spit on by gooey ducks and all these like super fun things that kids do, and just find so much joy in it. I've just loved, to be honest, I have loved the kids camps so much that it's something that I'm definitely happy I'm doing, and want to expand that even more because it's just so fun to watch kids out there on the water and finding new things that they've never seen before. It's such a joy.
Wow. So I'm sure, as you've said, it takes a lot of hard work to get to this point in your business, and you've expanded, and now you are working with kids, and it sounds like that's just going to keep growing. After years of hard work and making this business what it is, what are you just loving right now about your situation?
Right in this moment, I'm loving the fact that I'm going into my off season. I'm going to have some time to reflect on what I've done. I'm going to have some time to travel and explore some other places. And I think that for me, for owning my own business, that was such an important part of it, was the flexibility. I know it's a lot of work, and I haven't had a moment to breathe this summer. And every time my partner looked at me and I was on my phone and asked me what I was doing, he knew the answer. I'm working, I'm working. And that's what I was doing all summer, was working. And now I'm actually just looking forward to a few months to just kind of breathe and reset and get ready for next year.
Mm. So kind of the flip side to that coin, this show isn't about always showing what's perfect and all that. And entrepreneurship, it's ever evolving. We're always expanding, and many times always in the process of figuring things out. So let me ask you, kind of the flip side to that coin, what about your current situation? Maybe are you wanting to improve, or maybe struggling with, or even just you want to take it to that next level?
I think that I definitely want to improve my quality of life in the summer when I am working, so that I'm not working, 60 hours a week. I definitely want to kind of rein in my employee situation and make sure that I really have that dialed in next summer, because this was the first year hiring people. I had no idea what I was doing. I don't know how to be a boss. I think I did okay, but gives me a little bit of anxiety, to be honest, just having people that I want them to be happy, but I also have a business to run, and kind of balancing that is something that I really need to work on.
Those are some good ones. Those are great. And they seem totally doable. So I love it.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So as we kind of start to wrap up, let's tell everybody, where can they find you?
Well, let's see. I have a website, dragonflykayak.tours.com. I also have Facebook, Dragonfly Kayak Tours, and I have an Instagram also at Dragonfly Kayak Tours. I'm pretty active on Facebook and Instagram. I have some blog posts on my website that kind of go into a little bit of my story and what landed me here. If anybody wants to read about that, those are the places to find me.
All right. And then as we kind of close out, as you know, I'm a strategy and action coach. So I created this podcast not just to talk and dream about things, but to show people how they can combine an income producing job with their love for the outdoors. So ultimately, I really want to inspire people to take massive action towards their own dreams and their own goals. So with that in mind, I'd love to close out with an outdoor action challenge. So Tori, what's one thing you want people to get out there and do in pursuit of their dreams and goals?
My outdoor action challenge is to go out and immerse yourself in the thing that you love. And if it's something that you want to make a career out of, when you immerse yourself in it, then you will find that path to get there.
Perfect. And I think you showed us exactly like it can be done. And I love just sharing that story with people so they can see other people's journey into entrepreneurship. It looks different for everybody. And I think this is just one more way people can make it happen. So perfect place for us to close out. We'll put all the ways that our listeners can learn more about you and your work in the show notes. Thank you so much again for sharing your journey with us, Tori. It's been a blast talking with you, and keep kicking ass and happy adventuring.
Thank you so much, Liz.
My goal as a business strategy and action coach, and why I ultimately created this podcast, is to inspire you to take massive action towards your own dreams and goals. So if you're enjoying this podcast and you find the content valuable, like, subscribe, or follow me wherever you get your podcasts. And I always love hearing from my listeners, so please leave a review. And until next time, be sure to live life on your terms. And if you're not, make a plan and make it happen, my friend. Adventure awaits. Thanks for listening.